Eyup Cook, it's going to be Eaton down at bottom of League One. So we're going to go through the teams that are potentially in a little bit of bother and ultimately who I think will get relegated at this time in the middle of October. We've just done second international break and 8th at leagues played. Now, straight away, there's no point speaking about full division because after it's going to be fine anyway. It's in league order as of right now on the 12th of October. So you've got Stevenage and then Bradford leading way, and we're going to sort everybody into a category that we can talk about or what's worth speaking about if they're in any bother at all. But like Stevenage, Bradford, Cardiff, Stockport are all 1,000,000% fine. That's your top 4 currently. Wimbledon and Lincoln should be all right, but you never know. Club size, I do think, plays into something like this, and obviously Stevenage are top at minute, but with games in hand and just how solid they truly look, I still think these will be fine, by the way, but Stevenage are a cut above at minute. Huddersfield, Barnsley, Bolton, all 1,000,000% fine. I think Donny should be right. Luton, 1,000,000% will be good. Mansfield could be in a bit of a danger zone, but personally, I think they'll be fine. Same as Leyton Orient. Northampton are probably the first entry to what we could speak about here. Maybe, but we'll come and address that in more detail in a minute. Port Vale, I think, will be bang on. Exeter in danger. Wigan, Plymouth Plymouth should be fine. I think Wickham could potentially be seen as someone that's in danger zone, but with Michael Duff and just his standards naturally are higher than I would say Wickham's. So I think Wickham will be all right just because of him, really. And then probably filling the rest out all in here in danger zone. So you're looking at Northampton, Exeter, Wigan, Burton, Reading, Rotherham, Blackpool and Peterborough. There's probably 4 from 8 that I do think will be getting relegated. I think when we're sat here in May, you are looking at this line and you're picking 4 sides that will get relegated out of them teams. Now, the highest ranking side that I've got on that tier list in table right now is Northampton, that are up in 14th. They've had a really good recent run. They've been really good defensively. They're not conceded loads of goals recently. But yesterday, as we'll come and look at in a minute, the results from this weekend's games, the ones that weren't cancelled for internationals, Northampton lost 2-1 at home to Rotherham, and that has sort of dragged me back into thinking, maybe Northampton could be in a bit of danger because Rotherham are absolutely garbage and they've won at your place. If we do look at games from yesterday, there were quite a few that have some impact on bottom. And Northampton losing at home to Rotherham is definitely one of them that we're going to look at now. Because stats-wise, it was all Rotherham as well. It's not like Northampton have been sort of unlucky here. It were a penalty, which I saw and I don't think was a penalty. Still quite well, it's just a poor side in general. I'm not going to change my mind on that. Regardless of what my analysis is on Rotherham, I don't think the team or the squad is good at all. They've got some players coming back from injury now, like Nombe, who was very important to them. Like somebody like Hugo's not being injured, but as a squad option is okay. But this is really important for Rotherham's chances of survival, because I think you've got to have someone like this firing to give them any sort of chance at all. Like, they've won this game against a Northampton side that's been quite good in recent weeks, as we can come and look at. Like, the recent form of Northampton's is actually really good, really solid. And Rotherham have been crap for quite a while. Well, all season they've been quite crap. The Oldham Bonnet Cups maybe give them a little bit of life. But again, you've scraped past a bottom half League 2 side there. We have a really good side that Rotherham put out and all. But not to be too negative on Rotherham, because they have got a win of at line, which is something that they desperately needed. But it does make me worry for Northampton a little bit after getting some really good teams out at away and all, like Leyton Orient that went to and won 1-0. Obviously, a bit Bolton 2-0. Went to Port Vale away, which is not an easy game, and got a point there. Another clean sheet there. But to then lose 2-1 to Rotherham, it sort of brought me back into thinking that they could be in this conversation. But then just looking at some other results, obviously Wimbledon and Port Vale drew. I think both of these will be fine. Despite them both coming up from League 2, I do think they will be well away from it. Which is something that we can address quickly, actually. That out of every team that I've got in danger zone, not one of them is a newly promoted side. And I've addressed this a few times, and I referenced it a lot when I made my pre-season predictions anyway, that I only thought Wimbledon would go down originally, whereas now I've changed my mind. Bradford, Donny and Port Vale, I think have all got a fair crack at finishing top half. The standard of these teams that have come up has been such high quality that I'm now sat here thinking definitely none of them will get relegated. And again, referencing last season, you had Mansfield who were more than fine at end of it. Stockport went to playoffs and Wrexham got automatically promoted. Only Crawley got relegated from 4 that come up last season. So again, you're looking at last season's Bristol Rovers, someone that's been in and around it for a couple of years that were unlucky with timing and have gone down. Same as Shrewsbury, same as Cambridge. Teams that have been in division for a while all got relegated. And I think that's what we're looking at again here, because I'm sat here saying Wimbledon, Donny and Port Vale will all be fine, and Bradford will probably be finishing top 6 if anything. So coming back to this, Burton beating Bolton 3-0 is absolutely massive, because Bolton have been on a decent run recently as well. They're starting to find the feet a little bit more, turning some of these draws into wins that they're getting, because they do dominate a lot of games, Bolton, and I do think with how they naturally play, they are probably the best team in the league in terms of complete domination most weeks from start to finish, but they're just not getting over that line. And obviously, you've got to look at both boxes, really, for something like that. But I just don't think they've been clinical enough or defending well enough here in this instance away at Burton to be where they should be based on the performances. But that's a huge win for Burton. That is massive. Obviously, Leyton Orient, who were down in some sort of scrap, conceding loads of goals. They've bet Donny 4-0. Like, Donny been on a really poor run. But Orient just swept them aside really easily. Another really impressive win. Exeter and Reading has quite a lot riding on it as well. We'll come and address that in a minute. And then Blackpool losing away at Stockport. 1-0's not the worst result ever, but they've sacked Steve Bruce now. They've still not got a replacement in. They might have one by the time I post this video, to be honest, because they'll be looking at somebody like Bloomfield, who's been sacked at Luton. Or maybe they fancy it with Richie Wellens if they want to go and pay Orient £1 million. I don't know whether he'd move to Blackpool, really, from Orient. But Wycombe winning away at Wigan is another really big game. So there's a lot riding on these fixtures that have happened at weekend, and only one that's not had anything to do with some sort of relegation scrap is probably Wimbledon and Port Vale, two sides that have come up. But to actually look at the table properly, Northampton are the highest, like I said, in 14th, for a side that I think could potentially be in danger. But that is only 3 points clear of 4th bottom in Reading. So it's a very level league, top to bottom, I do think. I know Stevenage are top at league currently on 25 points, and that's with 2 games in hand over some big sides that are probably threatening them to it. So Stevenage are well away at minute. But there's a lot of sides that could quickly be dragged into this sort of fate. So Northampton being 14th and the highest away from all this at minute don't really mean anything because they're 1 win away from being dragged straight to bottom 4. That being said, the current bottom 4 is obviously, as you can see on your screen, Peterborough dead last. I know they didn't play this week in an international break, but they're dead last on 7 points in 11 games. Blackpool are on 8 points in 12, and then Rotherham and Reading are both on 11 points after 11 games. Now, typically, a point a game is riding line sort of you'll probably be okay, but you never truly know. You're looking at 50, aren't you, for the most part, to stay up. And if they get 46, like Reading and Rotherham are currently on, you're asking for trouble, really, but you could get away with it. But Blackpool and Peterborough right now are miles off pace in terms of what is needed to stay up. And this is two sides that a lot of people are looking at and thinking they might be all right. They might be top 10, maybe. Apart from me, not so much with the Blackpool thing, because I was being gaslit into thinking they'll finish top half. But Peterborough, I have addressed this issue all summer that they are definitely going to be in a relegation battle, and I had them in bottom 4 before the season started, and that has not changed. Coming back to this graphic, the first team that I'm immediately putting into relegation zone, without even addressing a lot of these right now, I think Peterborough are absolutely doomed. I do not think there's anything they can realistically do with that squad to really pull away from any sort of danger at all. I think they will be 24th. Probably from now till May. I can't see a whole lot changing with that. Which could maybe think I'm being quite harsh, because obviously in recent weeks they're sort of changing. They look like they're putting something on a little bit. They bet Wycombe 2-1 when they had Mike Dodds, and then they went to Plymouth and won 1-0, but they were getting slapped about for the majority of that game. They did also only lose 2-1 to Bolton, and a lot of Bolton's fans were saying like they were fairly lucky to get away with that Bolton, that the snagged win really. So performances look like they could be changing. But that is not enough when you are bottom of the league after 11 games and spending the money, really, that Peterborough have done. Because I am not a fan of Peterborough's owner at all. I think he gets away with a lot of things because he's quite outspoken. And sometimes that can go against you, which it is doing in this case with me. But I think people sort of let him off with stuff because he has a podcast and he speaks about football. So people just let him off with the fact that he's absolutely butchered this squad. But at the same time, they have spent some decent brass this summer, so you can't even beat him with that stick, which I like to do quite a lot. That Peterborough bring in absolutely boatloads of money for players like Ronnie Edwards and Harrison Burrows, but they just don't spend enough to bring in the quality that they are letting go. So regardless of the fact that it's some money ball system that Barnsley like to play with, and also I've seen this firsthand, every time you sell the players in your squad, you're just getting worse because you're bringing in players from an even lower level for cheaper consistently in this cycle. So eventually it will just bite you in the ass. But some of these players look okay. Collins is one that's got a year left on his contract, is easily the best player from outside looking in, will leave on a free. He's on transfer list, he's not been sold, and it's a good job and all because they'd be going down with 0 points if he weren't in the team. Now, that being said, I think Collins, Woods and Garbutt in middle is the only real saving grace for this squad. The attack that Peterborough have got, because you always address Peterborough having this like really good number 9, don't you? Someone like Tony or a Clark Harris. They've had a lot of good strikers over years. Poku even, some like a winger inside forward type of thing. They've had a lot of good attackers over years. They have not got one player in this team that I think is going to get 10 goals. Not one. The firepower up front is non-existent. The defence is absolutely atrocious. And I think the average age of this squad is probably in teens. They've got no real leaders or experience in here. Apart from Tom Lees, that's really it that I would look at and think, all right, he could maybe drag you through a bit of a crap spell. But it's just not happening. I just think across board, this team is not good enough. I'm not keen on Ferguson manager anyway, really. The squad level's depleted massively. And that's all in a league where the 4 teams coming up from League 2, who Peterborough would think, we could finish above these if nobody else. At least we'll be fine, we'll finish above these 4. They're all miles better than what Peterborough are. So it's a very tough, level league. And I think Peterborough are comfortably worse side in it. That being said, they've got some very important fixtures coming up for, well, relegation 6-pointers, really. You're looking at Burton into Blackpool, into Wimbledon. Oh, I think he'll be fine, but still, for Wimbledon, it owns one. You've got to be looking at where win. And then even if you want to keep going, Mansfield, Stockport at home, Donny, Reading, and Northampton there at bottom. There's a lot of games there to try and get some points on board. If they are still bottom after Northampton at home, I give up. And to be honest, if I'm a Peterborough fan, I'd be finding it nearest bridge. Now, despite current league position, there are some teams in this danger zone that I look at and think will just definitely be fine, regardless of where they currently are. Wigan are one of them. I think Lowe as a manager is really good. And the squad, Wigan start to finish, is not good. Like, it's just really not good at all. But I do think they've got the odd player that can just sort of drag them through some shit. Like, they've got players, like, I would probably address Reading as someone like this as well, or Rotherham, that you've got odd player, like Rotherham have got Nombe, or Reading have got Lewis Wing. Wigan have got somebody like Sam Tickle, or Paul Mullin stood up front, who I don't even think is that good, but if he's one of your best players, that just shows where you are, really. I think, as a whole, Wigan squad is crap, but they should be fine, really, when we're looking at it and comparing them to some other sides that are going to be down there. And to be fair, I look at Reading and said the same thing. Somebody like Lewis Wing, somebody like Powdy O'Connor, some of the midfielders that they've got apart from Lewis Wing are just really good. I think they've got some of the best players in this division. And to be honest, I can't see a side getting relegated when you've got players that are too good for League 1 anyway. I cannot see you getting relegated to League 2, personally. I know there's the manager situation is the worst thing with Reading. And I do also sit there and think that is, looking long term, a good thing if the only reason that you are where you are right now is your manager. And to be fair, I sort of think that with Blackpool as well, but theirs is not to the same level as what Reading's is in terms of personnel. But once Reading sacked the manager, I think they'll be fine. Blackpool have sacked Steve Bruce, and I'm still not overly convinced that they will be, is the problem. To be fair, I do also think you could sort of clump Rotherham into that as well. They've got somebody like Sam Nombe, they've got odd midfielder that's alright if they can stay fit. But again, the squad that Rotherham have got is really poor. And I do think a large part of the reason that Rotherham are so crap and currently in bottom 4, despite a massive win away at Northampton in a relegation 6-pointer, Hampshire is an awful manager. Absolutely awful. The mentality is crap. They're just shot for confidence. If they start winning, they just defend a 1-0 lead. Regardless if they were playing my Sunday League side, I think they would sit back 1-0 up at home against a bunch of part-timers. If they'd have been 1-0 up against Northampton at weekend, I think they'd have lost. I think that because they had to sort of come out because they were 1-0 down, I think that sort of played into their hands a little bit. But they have not got the mentality from a long-term perspective to go and have a few games in a row where they're playing like a Burton and then an Exeter and then a Peterborough. I don't think they could ever go on a win streak, ever. Because the mentality is just not there. The tactics aren't there. I could not tell you Rotherham's style of play if you put a gun to my head. And I think because Hampshire is a Rotherham man, grew up in area, all this, then I think he'll be offered leeway that he shouldn't really get. Eventually, I do think they will have to sack him at some point this season. Especially if they're in and around it like December. I think they will probably just bite bullet and get rid of him. But they need to sooner than later. Because I think if Rotherham sacked him and got a serious gaffer in, I would have him as fine. But just based on the fact that I will think they will keep him for too long, I'm still going to keep him in this sort of danger zone. That it's not a given that they'll get out of this. If I'm being completely honest, the team that I look at right now, out of all these in danger zone, and think he'll pull away from it most, is Burton. Which I feel like not a lot of people would think. They always start crap anyway. Like this time last year, I think they're on about 3 points in October, and they ended up pulling away from it. They are one of the smallest teams in this division. The budget is one of the smallest in this division. But I like the manager. It's obviously the same one from last season that got them out of all that crap. It's the same gaffer. Some of them players that they have got are way too good for the standard of Burton, respectfully. Someone like Brad Collins in net was almost a promotion-winning keeper with Barnsley under Duff. He went to Coventry for a reason. I know they've moved on from him now. But Collins should not be at Burton. Collins should not be at a bottom 6 League 1 team. He should not. Charlie Webster should not be here. He's outstanding. He's such a good footballer. Somebody like Kieran Lofthouse, who we sold him this summer, like a rate wing-back. He's too good for a bottom-end League 1 team. I think Tavares is. They've got some really good players, Burton have. Squad depth is probably one of the weakest in here. But I do think the starting 11 is mid-table tackle. If they can keep some of the better players fit, like a Collins or a Webster, then I think Burton will pull away from it and will be fine. Obviously, they've not been consistent enough at the minute, but in the last 5 league games, they've had some really tough fixtures. Huddersfield, Plymouth, Cardiff, Donny and Bolton, and they've lost once. They got absolutely tongued at home to Plymouth, but they went to Huddersfield and got a point. They went to Cardiff away and won, went to Donny away and got a point, and then they've just battered Bolton yesterday 3-0. I think Burton will pull away from this. There are many teams that I could not see scoring more than 2 goals in a game ever, or even winning by 2-goal margin. Never mind 3 at home to Bolton, or going away to Cardiff and winning, or getting a point at Huddersfield, or a point away at Donny. These have got some serious minerals, Burton have, and I think they'll be fine because of it. Which brings me back to it. I need to pick 3 from 4 in this clan to be relegated with Peterborough. Now, unfortunately, I think Exeter are going to be one of those. I don't think there's even a lot to be addressed here. I think the squad is awful. Again, truly like horrific. Last season, Exeter I thought were terrible for a long time, and they were just getting away with results. This season, I think they play better stuff than they were doing last time, from the bits that I've seen. They've lost 3 out of the last 5 games. They only got a point at home to Reading, which, again, is a relegation 6-pointer at minute, and somebody that you've got to beat at home if you want to have any sort of chance. Constant points at home is not good enough. They need to win a lot more games than they are doing. I think the squad is crap start to finish, apart from keeper. And the football, regardless of the fact that it's getting slightly better, I would rather play worse and get wins like you were doing last season. And do I think, looking at it objectively, from the 20 teams that have either come down from Championship or were in League One last season, how many of them teams do I think Exeter are better than, based on last season? Maximum 2 at an absolute push. And all 4 of the teams that have come up from League 2, I think, are going to stay up. So there are not many, if any, teams that I think are going to be weaker than Exeter. They're just lucky that Peterborough, as crap as they are, for the fact that I think they'll finish bottom. But Exeter, unfortunately, I think are going to get relegated still. Blackpool are miles bigger than these 4. Absolutely miles bigger. They're miles bigger than Burton, Wickham, Port Vale, Plymouth. A lot of these sides, but that means note if you're absolutely crap at football, which unfortunately Blackpool are, regardless of the fact that they've sacked Steve Bruce. Squad-wise, I think Blackpool are probably in the strongest position out of these 3. Manager-wise, obviously they've not got one at the minute, but I would still say even that is better than what Rotherham have got. I sit here now and think that because of Rotherham's manager, they will get relegated. 1 win away at Northampton, regardless of how big it was, does not change an opinion that I have had since before the season started. I think I had these 3 and Wimbledon before the season started, and I am still not changing regardless of a good win for Rotherham. Like I said earlier, I don't look at Rotherham and ever think they will win a game by more than 2 goals. I don't think they will ever be comfortable in a game. And at the same time, I would say that I think from a loser's perspective, I don't really see Rotherham going and getting absolutely annihilated 5-0. Like I could with some other sides in this division, like Peterborough. But I just do not see a world where Rotherham consistently pick up enough wins to survive. Do I think that Rotherham will get 13 wins and 6-7 draws to stay up? Just as a ballpark for what you probably need? No, I absolutely do not see that. They've got 3 wins in 11 games, and the 3 wins that they had were first one against Port Vale, when Port Vale had 10 men for effectively full thing, and they sat back and nearly get it away. So you've got Port Vale at home as one of your wins, Exeter at home, 1-0, where again, you're not exactly setting your world on fire at somebody crap like Exeter at home, and they sat back for a lot of second half at home to Exeter when they'd not won in weeks at that point, and then yesterday away at Northampton. That's Northampton, Port Vale with 10 men, and Exeter. There are only so many times that you will play someone like that. So if I get it up for you to properly look at, do I think they'll win that? No. Burton at home is absolutely massive. Do I think Rotherham win that game? No. Honest to God, I don't know. Lincoln, no. Maybe Blackpool at home. Maybe a push. But I think, again, you're going weeks on end without even considering the fact that they could win a game here. It's not enough. Consistently, it's not enough. Obviously, the Nombe coming back is massive for him. But you're relying on him not being injured again. Because if he does, I just think it's an absolute given. You cannot rely all your hopes on one man. And I think that's what I've been doing from a neutral's perspective. I'm sort of looking and thinking, once Nombe comes back, maybe Rotherham will start like pulling away a little bit. But I'm looking at Benson, who's your best player at weekend, probably one of your best players full stop. You might get 15 games out of him all season and he's going to be injured for the rest. Defensively, they look awful for the most part. And I think there's just too many players in this Rotherham team that just do not look like they want it enough. And I do think largely that speaks to Hampshire and what he is as a manager, because I just don't think he's good enough. He don't really inspire me when you look at how they see the wins out that they do get at home to somebody like Exeter. A lot of these players, well, some of these players are actually good, and they're not going to think, we're 1-0 up at home to Exeter, let's sit back. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just so contrasting to what the manager wants from these players, to what the players know they can probably do, that eventually something has got to give. And I think if they get rid of Hampshire fairly quickly, they'll be fine. But this has just bought him another 6 months, really, getting 1 win away at Northampton. Ultimately, coming back to it, I think both of these sides have got more about them than what Rotherham have. And I say that having seen Rotherham just beat Northampton 2-1. But across the full season, I think Northampton will get a lot more points, a lot more wins, concede a lot less goals, and just ultimately look a much better organised, drilled side than what Rotherham do. I think Rotherham are getting relegated. My opinion has not changed. So I'm coming to either Northampton or Blackpool to bite the bullet as well. And like I said earlier, you've got to ignore club size a lot on something like this, because ultimately it just does not matter. I think across the full season, Blackpool will be fine and Northampton will unfortunately finish 4th bottom. I do worry for them, not so much for their own performances, but because, like I said, it's a very level division, this. And I think you could be looking at arguably a record high points tally required for 4th bottom, just based on some sides that I think are going to finish above them. If we go back a few seasons and look at how many points is required to finish 20th and stay up 5th bottom in this division, last season Burton got 47. Season before, Burton again got 46. Cambridge got 46. In a very, very low year, Fleetwood got 40. For the last couple of seasons, if you're averaging 46, 47 points, I think this season is going to be a lot higher, because I look at this division as a whole and think the competition start to finish is the highest it's been in years. But I also look at sides that I think are going to get relegated, like the 3 that I've said so far, and I think they are miles better than ones that have been relegated in previous years. At the minute, we're looking at Reading and Rotherham, who are 3rd and 4th bottom, which will get you relegated. They're both on 11 points in 11 games. That's 46 points to finish 3rd bottom so far this season, if we're going across a full year. And that's when both playing really crap, not getting anywhere near as points as they should be doing. And you just look at them two and think, well, across the full season, surely it can only get better, sort of thing. And that they will get more points per game on back of that. I think you're probably looking at 50-odd points to stay up this season. And do I look at any of these 4 and think that they actually can get 50 points? Unfortunately not. I don't look at Northampton and think they've got the firepower up front required to get to 50 points. I don't think Rotherham have got the defence or the man it dug out to get to 50 points. And Exeter and Peterborough are just like basket cases, to be honest, across a full season. Whereas Blackpool, who I think are the biggest threat currently to finishing at bottom 4 instead of one of these, once they get a new manager in, their squad is miles better than any of them 4. Absolutely miles better. It's not even up for discussion. I'm a complete neutral to every single side in this division apart from Barnsley. I do not care about anybody from a I really like you or a really dislike you perspective. I do not care. I'm so level-headed, I think, apart from being delusional towards Barnsley. And I look at the 5 teams here that I think are the most in danger. Blackpool, regardless who the manager is that comes in, I think if they get someone like Bloomfield, best manager by an absolute mile compared to any side out of these 4. Squad level, best by a mile. Individual personnel, somebody like Bloxham or Niall Ennis or Horsefall, only Sam Nombe could chat to any of these boys. No one else in these 4 teams is even close squad level, manager wise. I guess you could say fan base and what you think they could drag you through at home and something like that. If you're under Kosh, can Blackpool at home, can their fans drag you through? I think they probably could in comparison to these 4. I think everything just points across a full season to saying that Blackpool will be fine, and these 4, Northampton, Rotherham, Exeter and Peterborough, in that order, I think will get relegated, sadly. But that's where I'm at currently. They are the 4 teams that I think are getting relegated in League One. It's a very up and down league, so I'll probably change my mind again. But Northampton, Rotherham, Exeter and Peterborough are the 4 that I've settled on right now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Love you all. Kiss. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe and hype the video. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a bit. Goodbye.
I say I'm a man. Yes, I'm a mucker. I think of me saying as a right good looker. I say up that. Show us bit it.